Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. How does a simple fight over a fence end with your neighbor paying you thousands of dollars? It all started when our Karen neighbor sent a legal threat, demanding we move our fence immediately. But it ended when we discovered her multi-thousand-dollar secret, and trust me, the payback was perfect. My wife and I bought our house several years back in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone mostly kept to themselves in that pleasant, wave from the driveway kind of way. The house came with a decent-sized backyard, a storage shed that the previous owners had built, and a chain-link fence that ran along the property line between us and the house next door. Nothing fancy, but it was ours, and we loved it. The neighbor to our right was an elderly couple who'd lived there for decades. We'd chat occasionally when we were both out doing yard work, and they were the kind of neighbors everyone hopes for, quiet, friendly, and respectful. When they moved into assisted living and put their house on the market, we didn't think much of it. We figured whoever bought it would probably be similar. Maybe a young family, maybe some retirees downsizing. We weren't worried. Then she moved in. I'll call her Karen because of course I will. She was probably in her mid-50s, divorced, and had apparently decided that her new life chapter involved micromanaging everything within a 100-foot radius of her property. The first sign of trouble came about 6 months after she moved in. I was mowing the lawn on a Saturday morning when she came marching across her yard, waving a piece of paper in the air like it was a warrant for my arrest. "Excuse me," she shouted over the sound of the mower. I killed the engine and pulled out my earbuds. "Hey there, what's up?" "This fence," she said, jabbing her finger toward the chain-link barrier between our properties. "It's on my property." I blinked at her. "I'm sorry, what?" "This fence. It's over the property line. It's on my side." I looked at the fence, which had clearly been there for years. The posts were weathered and weeds had grown up around the base in places. That fence has been there since before we bought the house. It's been there for at least 15, maybe 20 years. "I don't care how long it's been there," she snapped. "It's still on my property. I had someone look at it." "Someone?" I asked. "Like a surveyor?" "A friend of mine who knows about these things," she said, which I took to mean definitely not a surveyor. I tried to stay calm. "Look, I'm pretty sure that fence is right where it's supposed to be. The previous owners wouldn't have put it up wrong, and we've never had any complaints." "Well, you're getting one now," she said. "I want it moved." "Ma'am, I'm not moving a fence that's been here for 2 decades based on your friend's opinion. If you think there's a problem, you're welcome to hire a surveyor and we can look at the actual property line." Her face went red. "So you're refusing to fix your mistake?" "I don't think there is a mistake," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "But if you want to get an official survey done, I'll take a look at the results." She made a disgusted noise and stomped back to her house. My wife, who had been watching from the kitchen window, came out onto the back porch. "That looked fun," she said dryly. "She thinks the fence is on her property." "Based on what?" "Based on her friend's expert opinion, apparently." My wife rolled her eyes. "Great. We got one of those neighbors." Over the next few weeks, Karen's complaints expanded. The fence was too ugly and lowered her property value. Our shed was an eyesore. The trees on our property dropped leaves into her yard. Yes, she actually complained about leaves. She left passive-aggressive notes on our door about where we parked our cars on the street, a public street, mind you, and once called the city to report that our grass was too long, even though it wasn't even close to violating any ordinance. We tried to be patient. We tried to be good neighbors despite her hostility, but it was exhausting. Then, one evening about 3 months after the fence incident, we came home from dinner to find a letter taped to our front door. It wasn't a handwritten note this time. It was an official-looking document on legal letterhead. My stomach sank as I peeled it off and opened it. The neighbor had gotten a lawyer involved. The letter informed us that we were encroaching on her property with our fence, shed, and various landscaping features. We were given 30 days to remedy the situation and bring our property into compliance by removing all structures from her land, or she would pursue legal action. I read it twice, then handed it to my wife. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered. "I wish I was." We sat at the kitchen table and talked about our options. We could ignore it and see if she actually followed through, but that felt like a bad gamble. We could try to talk to her again, but based on every previous interaction, that seemed pointless. Or we could get our own lawyer involved and figure out what our actual legal position was. "Maybe we should just get the survey done," my wife said. "I mean, if the fence really is on our property like we think, then we'll have proof. And if she's wrong, maybe she'll finally shut up about it." Do you know how much a survey costs? I asked. We were talking about at least $1,000, maybe more, to have someone come out and map the entire property. It wasn't a small expense, especially for something we were pretty sure would just confirm what we already knew. Do you know how much a lawyer costs? She countered. She had a point. The next morning, I started calling surveyors. I explained the situation to a few different companies, and most of them gave me similar quotes between $900 and $1,200, depending on the complexity of the lot and how much research they'd have to do in the county records. I went with a local company that had good reviews and could schedule us within 2 weeks. When I told my wife I'd booked it, she looked relieved. At least we'll know for sure, she said. And when it turns out she's wrong, we can shove that survey right in her face. I wasn't quite as confident, but I appreciated her optimism. The surveyors showed up on a Wednesday morning, 2 guys with expensive-looking equipment and a truck full of tools. They set up what looked like a small telescope on a tripod in our front yard and started taking measurements, checking property records on a tablet, and pounding little stakes into the ground at various points. Naturally, Karen came outside to investigate. She stood on her porch with her arms crossed, glaring at them like they were trespassing. Eventually, she walked over. "What's going on here?" she demanded. One of the surveyors, a patient older guy with a weathered face, explained that they were conducting a boundary survey of my property. "Well, you'd better do my property too," she snapped. "I need to make sure these people aren't trying to cheat me." The surveyor just nodded politely and said she could call the office to schedule her own survey. She huffed and went back inside, presumably to do exactly that. The survey took most of the day. The crew worked methodically, checking and double-checking their measurements, referencing old property maps, and marking boundaries. By late afternoon, they were packing up their equipment. "We'll have the full report ready in a few days," the older surveyor told me. "But I can tell you right now, your fence is fine. It's about 6 inches inside your property line, actually. Whoever put it up did a good job." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "So there's no encroachment on her property?" "Not from your fence, no. Your shed's fine, too. Everything on your side is on your side." "That's great," I said, shaking his hand. "Thanks so much." He hesitated, then glanced toward Karen's house. "There is one thing, though." "What's that?" "Well, we were measuring the full perimeter of your property, right? And, you might want to take a close look at the report when you get it. There's something you should know about." "What do you mean?" He seemed to choose his words carefully. "Let's just say your neighbor might want to be careful about pushing property line issues." I frowned, confused, but he wouldn't elaborate. "It'll all be in the report," he said. "You'll see." 3 days later, the official survey report arrived via email. It was a thick PDF with maps, measurements, and legal descriptions. I opened it at my desk and started scrolling through. The first few pages confirmed what the surveyor had told me. Our fence was properly placed, well within our property boundaries. Our shed was fine. Everything we'd built or installed was where it should be. Then I got to page 7 and my eyes went wide. According to the survey, a portion of the neighbor's detached garage was actually on our property. Not by a little bit either. A solid corner of her garage, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, was over the line. The survey included a detailed diagram showing the property boundary running right through her structure. I read it again to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. Then I called my wife over. "Look at this," I said, pointing to the screen. She leaned in, squinting at the diagram. "Wait, is that—" "Her garage is on our property." My wife's eyes went huge. Then she started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but a full-on, doubled-over, tears streaming down her face laugh. "You're joking," she gasped. "Please tell me you're not joking." "I'm not joking. It's right there in the survey." She read the relevant section herself, then looked at me with the biggest grin I'd ever seen. "Oh, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect." I felt the same giddy satisfaction bubbling up in my chest, but I tried to stay practical. "Okay, so what do we do with this information?" "What do? We use it. She threatened to sue us for encroachment. Well, guess who's actually encroaching?" "I know, but—" "No buts," she said firmly. "She started this. She hired a lawyer. She sent us that nasty letter. Now she's about to find out what it feels like." I couldn't argue with that logic. We'd tried to be reasonable. We'd tried to be good neighbors. Karen had chosen confrontation at every turn, and now it was going to bite her in the ass. We contacted a real estate attorney the next day and brought him the survey. He looked it over, asked a few questions about our interactions with the neighbor, and nodded slowly. "Well, this is pretty straightforward," he said. "She's encroaching on your property. You have a few options." You could demand she remove the portion of the garage that's on your land, you could negotiate an easement, or you could potentially sue for compensation. Given that she threatened you first, I'd say you're in a very strong position. What do you recommend? I asked. Depends on what you want. If you want to twist the knife a little, you could send her a letter using the same language she used in hers. Demand that she remedy the situation and remove all structures and encroachments from your property. That would certainly make a point, but honestly, forcing her to tear down part of her garage might be more trouble than it's worth for everyone involved. An easement agreement might be more practical. What's an easement? My wife asked. Basically, you'd give her legal permission to keep her garage where it is, but under specific terms. You could require payment, set conditions, that sort of thing. It protects you legally and solves the problem without anyone having to tear down buildings. But we could demand she remove it if we wanted? I asked. Absolutely. It's your property. You have every right to demand she get her structure off your land. My wife and I exchanged a look. Let's start with the letter, I said. The one that uses her own language. The attorney smiled slightly. I can draft that for you. A week later, we had our own letter, printed on legal letterhead and very official looking. It informed Karen that she was encroaching on our property with her garage and needed to remove all structures and encroachments from our property immediately. It cited the survey, included a copy of the relevant pages, and gave her 30 days to respond, the same timeline she'd given us. I walked over to her house and taped it to her front door, exactly like she'd done to us. Then I went home and waited. The response came faster than I expected. 2 days later, Karen was pounding on our door. My wife answered, and I came to stand beside her. "This is ridiculous," Karen shrieked, waving our letter in the air. "This is a lie. My garage has been there for 20 years. So has our fence," I said calmly, "but that didn't stop you from claiming it was on your property." "That's different." "How?" Because you..." She sputtered, her face turning purple. "I'm taking this to my lawyer." "Please do," my wife said sweetly. "Our lawyer is standing by." Karen stormed off, and we closed the door. My wife high-fived me. "That felt good," she said. "That felt really good," I agreed. The neighbor did indeed take it up with her lawyer. According to our lawyer, her lawyer tried to argue a few technical points about the survey methodology and whether our surveyor was properly licensed. But when her lawyer hired their own surveyor for a second opinion, they got the same results. Her garage was on our property, and there wasn't any way around it. Her lawyer contacted ours to negotiate. Could we work out an agreement? Could we be reasonable about this? We could, we said, for a price. Here's the thing about property law. If someone's structure is on your land, you have leverage. We didn't actually want to force Karen to demolish part of her garage. That would have been expensive and messy for everyone. But we did want her to understand that her aggressive, lawsuit-happy approach had consequences. Through our lawyers, we laid out our terms. We would grant her an easement for the portion of our property her garage occupied. She would drop any and all claims about our fence, shed, or anything else on our property. She would pay for both surveys, hers and ours. She would reimburse us for our legal fees. And here's the kicker. Remember how she kept demanding we remedy the situation and bring our property into compliance? Well, her exact words in that first legal letter were that we needed to remove all structures and encroachments from her property immediately. So our lawyer made sure to include in our letter to her those exact same words. She needed to remove all structures and encroachments from our property immediately. We were just following her template after all. Her lawyer probably had a good laugh explaining to her why that demand wouldn't work out well for her client. Oh, and she had to pay us $1 per year for the easement. Just $1, payable annually. Our lawyer said it was a nominal fee that kept the easement from being considered a gift, which could complicate things legally down the road. The neighbor had to agree to it as part of the settlement. There was some back and forth. Her lawyer tried to negotiate the legal fees down, argued about who should pay for what. But we held firm. Our position was simple. She started this fight, and she was going to pay for it. Literally. Her lawyer tried one last angle, adverse possession. The argument was that since her garage had been there for so long, she might have a claim to that portion of our property through continuous use. Our lawyer shot that down pretty quickly. He explained that adverse possession doesn't work that way when both property owners were unaware of where the exact line was. Since nobody had ever made a claim or objected to anything, it didn't apply to this situation. Eventually, Karen's lawyer advised her to take the deal. I imagine he explained what our lawyer had already made clear. If she pushed this into court, she would probably lose, and it would cost her a lot more than settling. She had started a property line fight over our fence, only to discover that her garage was the actual encroachment. So she signed. We signed. The easement was notarized and recorded with the county. The agreement allowed the corner of her garage to remain where it was, but only under very specific terms. She dropped every claim about our fence, shed, landscaping, and anything else on our property. She reimbursed us for our survey and legal fees. She paid for her own survey and her own lawyer, and she agreed to pay us $1 per year for the easement. Just $1. Legally, it mattered. Our lawyer said the nominal payment helped make it clear that this was an active agreement, not a gift or some vague permission that could create problems later. Emotionally, it was hilarious. The whole process took about 4 months from the day the survey came back to the day the easement was finalized. Between both surveys, her lawyer, our lawyer, and the settlement costs, Karen probably spent somewhere around $7,000 or $8,000 on a property dispute she started and lost. After that, she changed completely. No more notes, no more complaints, no more threats, no more dramatic speeches about our fence ruining her property value. When we saw her outside, she usually turned around and went back in. She did build a privacy fence on her side eventually. Properly placed, I assume. I guess she had finally learned that property lines are not based on vibes and angry letters. The first year, the dollar arrived in an envelope with no return address. Same thing the next year. My wife wanted to frame the first dollar, but we ended up just keeping them together in an envelope with the settlement papers. Every year when a new one shows up, we add it to the pile and laugh all over again. Would I have preferred a normal neighbor who did not threaten legal action over a fence that was not even on her property? Absolutely. But if someone insists on playing hardball with surveys, lawyers, and property lines, they should probably make sure they are not the one encroaching first. Karen wanted us to remove structures from her property. Instead, she found out her garage was on ours. And every year we get $1 to remember it by. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I used to work as a researcher in an inbound call center. I loved the work, and when I first started, the company was fantastic. Unfortunately, after about 4 years, the company was bought out by a large international corporation. It was the pretty standard hack and slash type of corporation. Buy a profitable company, strip it of its assets, cut costs, slash quality, make good money until the company's well-earned reputation is destroyed, then sell it off and move on. Within weeks, the company went from being a fantastic place to work to just another miserable, tense work environment where management took advantage of employees. One quick example of how badly they ruined the bonus structure. One particular bonus used to allow employees to earn up to $1,000 extra in 3 days. Under the new system, that became a single $50 Boston Pizza gift card. Previously, all employees could earn varying bonuses under that program. Under the new system, only one person got the gift card. Then they had the nerve to get mad at us when the new slap-in-the-face bonus failed to motivate anyone. I was good at my job. Not to brag, but I was the most productive employee on the floor. We were given 15 paid time off days every year. According to our employment contracts and company handbook, those days could be used for sick days, mental health days, and other personal reasons. No explanation was ever required. We were allowed to use them when and how we needed. I always made sure to use all my paid time off by the end of the year because it did not carry over. Previous management even encouraged us to use it. There was no bonus for not using it, so there was no reason to leave it unused. I followed the company rules, always gave plenty of notice, and only once left the team scrambling without notice because I was seriously ill. Then new management took over, and almost immediately they started trying to intimidate people into not taking paid time off. I heard a lot of stories from coworkers about supervisors grilling them when they called in, challenging them, and saying things like, "You do not sound sick." It was a lot of intimidation and bullying, so by the time I needed to use a paid time off day, I was ready. I called in one day and told them I would not be in the next day. They asked why, so I said I was not feeling well. Their voice immediately turned cold and they got rude. "You do not sound sick to me." Being a smart mouth, I replied, "Not even doctors try to diagnose illnesses over the phone." But they kept pushing. "Can you come in for the afternoon? You do not sound sick. You have been using a lot of sick days, way more than other employees." I got tired of being treated like a criminal for using time I was contractually entitled to, so I downloaded a recording app for my phone. I live in a one-party consent area, so it is perfectly legal to record phone calls. The next time I felt sick, I called in to work. Now, the company always started every call with a disclaimer. Thank you for calling. For your information, this call may be monitored or recorded for quality purposes. I said hello, gave them my name, and said, by the way, just so you know, on my end, this call may also be monitored or recorded for quality purposes. Because I was recording the call and I thought it was only fair to let them know. The supervisor gave a quick little laugh, then said, so why are you calling in sick? You do not sound sick to me. I will put you down as sick for the morning, but you will be in for the afternoon. I told her no. I was calling in for at least one full day and would update them if I did not feel better. She said, no, I will put you down for half a day. You can call in again if you do not feel better. Once again, I said no. I restated my position and told her that was final. She got really irritated and started implying that this could cause me to lose my job. Why do you take so much more paid time off than the other employees? I told her, I take what my employment contract says I am entitled to. No more, no less. She replied, well, you should have a better team spirit. We will have to review this with human resources. Her tone was threatening. Classic workplace bullying. I took the next day off and came in for my following shift. Almost immediately, I was told to go see Human Resources. I sat down at Art's desk. Art worked in Human Resources and was very much a corporate lapdog. He started going on about how they would have to review my employment contract and consider whether I was still a good fit for the company. In case I seem too calm in this story, understand that while I preferred to stay at the company for the time being, I did not actually care if they fired me. I was very good at my job and had already had several offers from competing companies, so the threat of being fired did not scare me. While Art was lecturing me, I took out my phone and started playing the recording I had made when I called in sick. Art stopped talking. At first he looked annoyed, then he realized he was listening to a recording of a supervisor verbally berating and intimidating an employee for using their contractual and legal rights. He excused himself and left the room. He was gone for about 10 minutes. When he returned, he was visibly angry but trying to restrain himself. He tried to dress me down and scare me by implying I had broken the law by making an illegal recording. I told him that, as a professional researcher, I had obviously done my research. In our area, single-party consent was all that was required. Then he changed tactics and started saying the recording did not count because the supervisor thought I was joking. I said, I was not. He said, but she thought you were. I replied, and she was wrong. So it does not really matter what she thought, Art. I told her the truth. She made a mistake. Recording my own phone conversations is completely legal and admissible. Art left again and came back a few minutes later, even more red-faced. He simply said, you can go back to your desk. I did as instructed, and that was the last I ever heard about using my paid time off. Whenever I called in from then on, they were always very precise and professional. Their tone was as cold as a politician's promise, but that was still much better than the bullying from before. The next one is an entitled people story. I do garbage collection, and as part of one of my routes, I have to go down a very narrow back alley. At its widest, it is about 10 feet across, and it requires extremely precise driving unless I want to smack my mirrors on something. Luckily for me, almost all of the garbage carts I need to collect are on one side of the alley, except for one. That one house and its bin are located about halfway down the alley on the opposite side. It has never really been an issue. I just get out of my truck, manually move the cart across the alley, dump it, and leave it on that side for the homeowner to move back later. I have been doing this for weeks. This route is new, so I have only been doing it for about a month, but it has been simple and easy. You would think so anyway. Apparently you would be wrong. This week, I finally met the homeowner. They followed me on foot about a block and a half away from their house after they noticed me driving by on the next street over. They wanted to complain that I was leaving their bin on the wrong side of the alley. They said, I know I am the only house on that side, but the old company just went down the alley twice instead of moving my bin. Yes, because the driver for the old company apparently had medical issues that made it difficult for him to get in and out of the truck. He would rather drive down the same street 2 or 3 times than get out and take 10 steps to move a cart. That old company also skipped a lot of carts and seemed to spend more effort coming up with reasons not to collect them than actually doing the job. There is a reason I took over the contract. I tried to mention that, according to my contract, I am technically not supposed to be going down that alley at all. They immediately told me I was lying because they work for the town, which is the same town that contracted me. Not wanting to waste time and energy on a pointless argument, I simply promised that from now on I would move their bin back to their side after dumping it, Satisfied with that solution, the entitled person left and walked back home. To be clear, they do not have any obvious physical limitation preventing them from walking the 10 feet to grab their bin. Their bin also is not close enough to any other bin on that side of the alley that they could accidentally confuse it with someone else's and take the wrong one, and even if they did, that would not really be an issue as far as I am concerned, unless their neighbor is that petty about marking territory. Nope. Just entitled, lazy people. Now, I do technically have a few petty revenge options I could use here. I could clarify with the town and make 100% sure that the alley is, in fact, off limits. Then I could stop picking up from that alley entirely, which would force this person to drag their cart 100 to 200 feet to the nearest street for pickup. But that would also make 5 to 10 other people do the same thing. There is also a chance the town would simply edit the contract to include pickup down that alley, which would make the effort pointless and put me right back where I started. I could also work to rule when it comes to this person's cart. That means I could ticket and refuse pickup for even the smallest infraction, like the lid being slightly open because the contents are pushing it up. It would technically be within my contract to do that, and it is technically expected of me. But the previous company used those exact tactics to avoid doing work, and it left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. That is a large part of why I got the contract in the first place. Also, I actually live in the area and have to potentially see and deal with the townspeople regularly, both in and outside of work. I would rather build a good reputation and public image with them. And lastly, oh no, I have to walk 10 extra steps. The effort of simply walking the cart back after dumping it is nothing compared to the hassle and paperwork involved in coming up with ways to be petty about not doing it. So, yeah, I just wanted to rant a little about how entitled and lazy some people can be. Sorry, there is not a more satisfying ending to this tale. Oh well. It is almost my weekend, and when I finish my shift, I will be grabbing a six-pack and assuming my weekend alter ego, Trashed Panda. Have a good one, everybody. And remember, we are all in this together. The next one is an entitled parent story. I am in marching band, and I am not exactly great friends with this one kid, whom I will call Entitled Kid. He is honestly a jerk. He also has Tourette's, though in his case it is fairly mild and mostly affects muscle tension. For example, he might suddenly clench his fist or straighten his leg and not be able to stop it. Anyway, we were performing at a pep rally. Ipien. We are a show-style band, so dancing is a pretty common part of what we do. Entitled Kid was not dancing, so I told him, "You need to dance, or the band director is gonna pull you out." He refused. The song ended, and then he refused to play too. So I stopped and said, "Bro, seriously play, or he is gonna pull you." That was when he turned to me and slapped me across the face while I was playing my trumpet. My lips hit my teeth against the mouthpiece, and I bit my lip. It started bleeding a little. The band director immediately grabbed him and pulled him back, while one of my friends held me back. The band director took Entitled Kid off to the side, and the assistant band director finished the song and seated us. We finished the pep rally, and by then, everyone in the school seemed to know that Entitled Kid had slapped me. People asked what happened, I told them the story, they laughed, and I mostly forgot about it, until later that night. At the football game, Entitled Kid walked in accompanied by his entitled parent and sat down in the trumpet section. The band director did not notice at first. Entitled Kid was not supposed to be there because he had assaulted me at the pep rally. So I told his parent, "Your kid cannot be here. He is on probation from band because of what happened at the pep rally." She looked at me and said, "You should be the one on probation. You told him he should play and then you hit him." I was stunned. That was what he told her. I corrected her and got the band director's attention. He saw Entitled Kid, walked up into the stands, got in his face, and told him to leave or he would call security. Entitled parent started screaming at the band director for correcting her son, and then tried to rush over to him, stepping over kids in the process. Thankfully, my friend, the tuba player, stood up and stopped her. Security came over and restrained her after the band explained what had happened. She and Entitled Kid were told to leave the venue or be arrested. She screamed that it was not over, and it was not. The next Monday in class, the band director was warming us up when Entitled Kid walked in. Since it was late in the year, he could not switch classes. He sat next to me, picked up my music stand, and threw it on the floor. Now I was angry. The stand he threw was my personal one, and it was badly broken. I stood up, and the whole band saw what was happening. A lot happened at once. The assistant band director pressed the emergency button, which is used in case of a fight or medical emergency. The band director jumped over the flute row, grabbed entitled kid by the shoulders, and pulled him to the front of the room. The rest of the band reacted in different ways. Some people looked around in shock, some tried to restrain me, and some pulled out their phones. Security arrived and took entitled kid to the office. I eventually got a new stand and things calmed down. For now. Entitled parent tried to press charges against me, but they were declined. Eventually, everything went back to normal in marching band. Entitled kid screamed at the band director and got thrown out of class within a month, and entitled parent was never seen again. I still see entitled kid around school sometimes. Even after a year, I am still annoyed about it. My stand still does not sit right, and honestly, the whole thing hurt my dignity too. Later on, entitled kid got into a verbal fight with the band director. He told him he was a terrible band director who only cared about himself. The band director responded by telling him that he did not know anything about him. He talked about how he grew up in the projects, how music gave him a way forward, and how he gave everything he had to get where he was. He also told entitled kid that he did not understand what even I, a pale white dude, understood. In our town, it often feels like the choice is school or drugs. Entitled kid started crying. Meanwhile, my bandmates were trying very hard not to laugh. Then entitled kid screamed, "I hate you, you ruined band for me," and stormed out of the band room. I still see him from time to time, but I drop any classes I have with him. People have described him as like a gay version of Troy from High School Musical, but less attractive and more like a carpet, which is still one of the weirdest insults I've ever heard. I do not feel bad. His parent still glares at me when she sees me, but since I became drum major for a show-style band, I have become pretty well known. And since entitled kid is finally out of my life, I am way less stressed. This is my life. Anyway, thank you for watching.